There are places on this earth that remain untouched, shrouded in a deep and ancient mystery. Vast expanses on the map of our world, once marked by cartographers only with the words, "Here be dragons." These were the last remnants of a world without boundaries, a world that still held secrets. By the early 20th century, most of these blank spaces had been filled in. The great mountains had been climbed. The vast oceans had been crossed. The poles had been reached. The world, it seemed, was becoming smaller, more known, more mundane. But there was one last great unknown. A place the size of a continent that remained largely impenetrable to the outside world, the Amazon rainforest, a vast emerald ocean of trees, veined with uncharted labyrinthine rivers, a place that held its secrets tightly. It was a world that could swallow armies and erase entire empires from human memory. And it was this world that called to one man above all others, a man who seemed to have been born in the wrong century. His name was Colonel Percy Harrison Fawcett. To the public in Edwardian England, he was a living legend, a hero straight from the pages of an adventure novel. He was a British explorer with an almost superhuman reputation for endurance and a steely, unwavering gaze. He was tall, powerful, and seemed to be made of something stronger than other men. He was a man who could walk for weeks through the suffocating jungle with little food, who seemed mysteriously immune to the diseases that claimed so many others, and who commanded a deep, almost mystical respect from the indigenous tribes. He encountered tribes that were often hostile to any other outsider. He was, to many, the last of the great Victorian explorers, a stoic figure who represented a romantic ideal of discovery, a man willing to trade the comforts of a predictable life in England for the profound and dangerous beauty of the unknown. But Fawcett was not a reckless treasure hunter. He was a surveyor, a cartographer, a man of science and meticulous detail. His first journeys deep into the Amazon were not quests for personal glory, but grueling, thankless work for the Royal Geographical Society in London. His official task was to map the unknown borders between Brazil, Bolivia, and Peru. This was a geopolitical necessity, driven by the world's insatiable demand for rubber, and meant to prevent wars over the valuable territory. For Fawcett, however, it became a spiritual calling. Day after day, month after month, he would press on, his instruments in hand, drawing the first true lines on a map that had, until then, been nothing but a green, empty space. The conditions of these early expeditions were beyond imagination. The oppressive, humid air, so thick it felt like breathing water. The constant, maddening drone of insects that never ceased, day or night, and the silence. A deep, watchful silence of the ancient forest, broken only by the cry of an unseen bird, or the rustle of something unknown in the undergrowth. His team faced starvation, malaria, venomous snakes, and tribes who had never before seen an outsider. Many men who followed Fawcett into this world did not come back. The jungle was a relentless, unforgiving force that seemed to actively resist being known. But through it all, Fawcett endured. And as he mapped the rivers and jungles, he began to see things and hear things that did not fit the official narrative of his time. The prevailing European view was that the Amazon was home only to scattered, primitive tribes incapable of building great societies. But Fawcett found evidence of something more. He discovered fragments of exquisite pottery along riverbanks, white and fine, decorated with red and black geometric designs far too advanced for the local peoples he met. He saw massive, ancient earthworks, the ghosts of old causeways and settlements swallowed by the jungle. These were not the works of simple nomads, and he heard persistent legends from various tribes, stories passed down through generations. They spoke of a great city of stone, hidden deep in the forest, with soaring buildings and a mysterious, continuous light that shone through the night. A city that once ruled the jungle, now forgotten and lost to time. A place they called the City of the Old Ones. These were just whispers, fragments of a forgotten world. But for Percy Fawcett, they were the seeds of an obsession that would come to be known by a single mysterious letter, the lost city of Z. An obsession needs more than just legends to survive. It needs a foundation, a piece of tangible history. And Fawcett found his place in a place as far removed from the jungle as one could imagine. The quiet, dusty archives of the National Library in Rio de Janeiro. It was there, among forgotten colonial records, that he stumbled upon a document that would change the course of his life. It was known as Manuscript 512, a crumbling, forgotten text written by a Portuguese explorer in the year 1753. The manuscript told a fantastic, almost unbelievable story. After a long 10-year journey into the interior of Brazil, searching for lost silver mines, the explorer claimed to have found the ruins of an ancient city, a city of stone, lost in the wilderness, unlike anything he had ever seen. He described it in vivid detail: wide, straight roads, multi-storied buildings that still reached for the sky, and great black stone arches adorned with carvings. He wrote of a grand plaza, and in its center, a tall column with a statue of a man pointing north. Most intriguingly, he described inscriptions carved everywhere, on the walls, on the arches, on the paving stones, a strange, unknown language that reminded him of ancient Greek or Phoenician script. To most historians of Fawcett's day, the manuscript was a work of fiction, a fantasy written by a man lost in the jungle, his mind playing tricks on him. But to Fawcett, it was the proof he had been searching for. The descriptions of a stone city matched the legends he had heard. The strange, ancient inscriptions echoed his growing belief that the Amazon had once been home to a sophisticated, perhaps even foreign, civilization. He believed he had found the historical anchor for his theory, the first real clue to the location of Z with the manuscript as his guide. Fawcett began to piece it all together. The myths, the artifacts, the ancient earthworks. He theorized that a highly advanced civilization perhaps descended from the seafaring Phoenicians, or even the survivors of the mythical continent of Atlantis, had once flourished deep within the Amazon. He believed they had built a network of cities, with Z as their magnificent capital. With this new purpose, his expeditions changed. They were no longer about mapping borders for a government. They were personal quests, funded by his growing fame as the man who knew the Amazon better than any European alive. He plunged back into the jungle, now guided by his own developing theory, searching for more definitive proof of Z. These journeys were brutal. On one, his team was forced to eat their own pack animals to survive. They were stalked by predators, both animal and human. Time and time again, he would come close to what he believed was the location of Z, a specific point on the map where all his clues seemed to converge. The jungle guarded its secrets. Well, then, in 1914, the world changed. The Great War erupted in Europe. Fawcett, a loyal officer of the Crown at 47 years old, returned to service. He commanded an artillery brigade on the front lines in Flanders. He left the green, silent, living world of the Amazon for a dead world of mud and fire and unimaginable horror. He fought with distinction, but his mind often drifted back to the rainforest, the dream of Z, a pristine, untouched civilization. Perhaps seemed more alluring than ever, a perfect antidote to the madness of the modern world. The dream waited for him. When the war ended, Fawcett returned a changed man, living in a changed world. He was older now, in his late 50s. The grand age of exploration was truly over, replaced by a modern, more cynical era of airplanes and industry. Many saw him as a relic, an old man chasing a fantasy, but his obsession with Z had not faded. If anything, it had intensified. He spent years trying to fund one last, definitive expedition. The scientific societies that once supported him were now skeptical of his grand theories, dismissing him as a romantic. So Fawcett turned to the public, funding his quest through newspapers and private investors who were captivated by his legendary story and the allure of a lost city of gold. And for this final journey, he would not go with a large, cumbersome team. He had learned from past failures that large expeditions were slow, loud, and often succumbed to internal conflict. He would go with just 2 companions. The first was his eldest son, Jack Fawcett, a young, strong man of 21, who deeply believed in his father's dream and had trained for years to join him. He was his father's opposite, in many ways charming and outgoing, where his father was stoic and reserved. The second was Jack's best friend, Raleigh Rimmel, chosen for his physical strength, loyalty, and good humor. Their plan was to travel light and live off the land, to move quietly and quickly, leaving as little trace as possible. They believed a small, self-sufficient party had the best chance of surviving the jungle's many dangers and of being accepted by any indigenous tribes they might encounter. It was a risky strategy, a journey with no safety net. In the spring of 1925, they set off from a frontier town in Brazil, the last outpost of civilization before the endless jungle. For several weeks, their progress was steady. Dispatches were sent back to Fawcett's wife, Nina, back in England, carried for weeks through the jungle by native runners who would then hand them off to the postal service. Fawcett's last letters were filled with a calm, unwavering optimism. He wrote of the beauty of the landscape, of the strange animals they saw, of the good health and high spirits of his son and Raleigh. He wrote of his confidence that they were finally on the right path to uncovering one of the world's last great secrets. He described their route in coded messages to protect the location of Z from any rival explorers who might follow. The dispatches were carried for weeks through the jungle, finally arriving at the coast, where they were telegraphed to Nina. She was the only one who held the key to his route, a secret she would guard for the rest of her life. Their last known location was a place Fawcett called Dead Horse Camp. It was a grim name, a spot where he had been forced to shoot his own horse on a previous expedition years before. It was here, on the 29th of May, 1925, that Fawcett handed his final dispatch to a runner. In it, he wrote that they were about to cross the upper Shengu River and venture into completely unexplored territory, a place from which no outsider had ever returned. He was optimistic and wrote to his wife, "You need have no fear of any failure." That was the last the world ever heard from Percy Fawcett. After that final message, there was only silence. At first, the silence was not alarming. Fawcett had warned that he and his party would be out of contact for at least a year, perhaps even 2. He had instructed that should they not return, no rescue parties should be sent, as their chance of survival would be even lower than his own. But as the months stretched on, and 2 years passed with no word, a deep concern began to grow in London and around the world. The world's most famous explorer had vanished into the green. What followed was one of the greatest search efforts in modern history. The story of the missing explorer captured the public's imagination. Despite his warnings, dozens of official and unofficial rescue missions were launched, funded by newspapers and geographical societies. Hundreds of men adventurers, journalists, and scientists ventured into the jungle, trying to retrace Fawcett's steps, following faint clues and rumors from local tribes. These missions were a testament to Fawcett's legendary status, but they were also a testament to the jungle's power. They found nothing. No bodies, no equipment, no sign of a final camp. The jungle that had claimed Fawcett now seemed to claim those who looked for him. It is estimated that over 100 people died while searching for the man who was already lost. The mystery was creating its own tragedies. No definitive trace of Fawcett, his son, or Raleigh Rimmel was ever found. Their disappearance became a global sensation, and in the absence of facts, theories began to swirl, each more fantastic than the last. The most widely accepted theory is that they were killed by a hostile tribe. Fawcett believed he had a good relationship with most indigenous peoples, but the deep jungle was home to uncontacted tribes who were known to be wary of outsiders. Over the years, rumors of 3 white men being captured and killed surfaced from different sources, but none were ever proven. Another, more mundane theory is that they simply succumbed to the jungle itself. An accident, like a river crossing gone wrong, or a sudden illness, like malaria. Or perhaps they simply starved after their supplies ran out. In a place as unforgiving as the Amazon, the simplest explanation is often the most likely. There would be no bodies to find. The jungle consumes everything. But there is a third, more romantic theory. A theory that Fawcett's wife, Nina, held on to for the rest of her life. The theory that Fawcett actually found it, that he reached his lost city of Z and found a society so peaceful or so secret that he chose to stay, living out the rest of his days there, cutting off all contact with the world he had left behind. A world, he believed, that was tearing itself apart. Over the decades, false clues would emerge. A compass found in the jungle that supposedly belonged to Fawcett. A set of bones that were later proven to be someone else's. The mystery only deepened, becoming more legend than history, a ghost story told around the world. Today, the Amazon is still a place of secrets. Modern technology, like satellite imaging, has revealed the geometric earthworks of a vast, ancient civilization hidden for centuries beneath the canopy. Proof that Fawcett's core theory of a complex Amazonian society was not a fantasy. He was right, but his city, the city of Z, has never been found, and no trace of the explorer or his son has ever been recovered. The story of Percy Fawcett is not really a story about finding a place. It is a story about the search itself, a testament to the human spirit's enduring need to look beyond the horizon. to fill in the blank spaces on the map, and to chase a dream, even if it leads into the heart of a great and silent mystery. And as you listen now to the sounds of that same jungle, perhaps you can imagine him there still, a whisper among the leaves, an echo on the river, a ghost in the green infinity,